Welcome to another episode of the APWASI Wine Buzz. The guest today is a remarkable young lady who, despite her effervescent youth, has achieved a remarkable array of accolades behind her. Having studied at university, a very important topic about environment, and from there, she has literally touched on almost every single aspect of the wine business, from having an import, export, to being an educator, to learning from her highly respected nonna, who gave her that very first glass of wine, and we won't mention the Sprite that goes with it, but also she is now becoming very prominent and was a number of years ago quite correctly identified as the up-and-coming sommelier in Canada. So allow me to introduce Renée Sferrazza.
Hi.
Welcome, Renée. Hi, welcome. Thank you very much for being on our program.
Oh, thanks for having me. And what a flattering introduction. I wish I could say that many nice things about myself. That was wonderful.
Oh, I think you're like a fine wine with many facets, and we but only touched on a few. So I know that when I was looking and doing some research on you, that you truly have a multi-faceted approach to life. And you have some very strong opinions, and and that was and has been expressed in certain interviews that you gave. But I think it's inspirational if you could share with us, how did you start your career in wine, Renée?
Well, multifaceted is probably the best term to describe me. Even before I got into wine, I had a degree in environmental policy. Well, I have a degree in environmental policy from York University with a certificate in geographical information studies. So I tried working for NGOs and the government here in Ontario for a while, but it just wasn't working out. So I was still working in restaurants, and I had actually at the time started a light fixture company. Everyone was always asking me, like, why are you doing so many things? I'm just fascinated by so many things. And it wasn't really until I got into wine that I found just a general topic that included all of my fascinations and just can kind of be like an overarching umbrella for everything that I really wanted to dip my fingers in the world. My other nonno on my mom's side, my grandfather, he worked so many different jobs when I was a kid. And I always loved hearing his stories about like this truck driving job that he had and this sales job that he had. And I was like, I want to be just like you. I want to have all these stories of these cool things that I did in my life. And I was working in restaurants at about the same time that I was working for the Toronto government. And it was just as a way to, like pay rent. And
of course, as many students do. Yes.
Yeah. And I had a manager that was running a lot of wine education programs. I was working there and I was asked for more shifts, and he was like, you need to learn the wine list. That's it. That's all I can tell you to do. So it was like, all right, great. A task. Perfect. I will learn the wine list. I will go to your wine classes and you will give me more shifts. Amazing. So I started going to, it was a very simple reason to start learning wine, more money. So I started going to these wine classes and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. This like incorporates a lot of the things that I was learning about in my degree, and there's history in here too. And all of the things that I really liked in school were coming out in wine. I asked him how I can get involved a little bit more, and he started telling me about just the wine industry walk around tastings that happen around the world. So there's a lot that happen in Toronto where I'm based. So I started going to those, and I brought resumes with me, and I started asking people at the walk around trade tastings if I could have a job on their winery. And one of them said yes. I got to go and work at a winery in the Prosecco region of Italy. So I was in Treviso. And at first it was just it was an internship, absolutely unpaid. I worked more so on the sales side with them, and they really enjoyed the sales aspects that I was doing, and they ended up paying me at the end, and everything kind of rolled forward from there. I hadn't had my sommelier certification yet. I hadn't started the agency yet. And I was just like, wow, this is really cool. I get to travel. I get to drink wine. I get to talk about wine, talk about history. I can take pictures about this, write about this, do all this stuff that I really wanted to accomplish in my life all together, all at once.
That's remarkable. And I totally subscribe to that. I've spent time in Treviso. It's wonderfully romantic, and it just offers, it exudes with pure Italy, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. And my mom is from there, so it was really nice to visit family.
Right. And they speak many languages there because of the historical background, not just Italian. So not only do you come from the classico pedigree of being Italian, but you've also had the traditional upbringing, which is a privileged one, and you definitely have got off to a flying start. Now,
I'll tell my parents you said that. They'll be very happy.
Please do.
Yeah.
And I would certainly enjoy having enjoying time, speaking to, like you said, the history that they carry with them. It's quite marvelous. Now, Renée, currently you're working on filming a video course.
Yeah, so I've been
before that, I wanted to ask, in what way will your videos be different to others that have been or are currently available?
So I've been working for myself for the last 7 years, and this is really what I'm doing now in the company that I have at the moment, which is essentially Wine by Renée. I have been going towards the thing that I think I do the best, which is talking to people that love wine, but are not sommeliers and are not in the industry of wine. And that's what I found has been the best thing that works for me. And I also love using my sommelier background for that. My goal with working on these courses, which I've been working on for the last year, is to create a very inclusive learning space that has a lot of tidbits of information, but goes at a much slower pace and is really an entrance beginner level for people that really don't want to work in wine. They want to know more. A lot of the courses that are out there are for people that want to be in the wine industry, and that's absolutely amazing. But there are a lot of people out there that just want to know more about what they are drinking. And I think that's a really big part of the marketplace that not a lot of courses are looking at. And they're also not looking at it in a way where the pricing is towards that. So when I recommend classes that people can take, the pricing is a bit steep. Even when I started in wine, I actually didn't take any classes. I just ran my life like I was in school because I couldn't afford it. So I bought a bunch of books and went to these tastings and was like, I can do this. I will just study my ass off and I'll get it done. Because the sommelier certification course was $900 Canadian. And that's as much as I had, plus a little bit extra for books. So I want to make something that's really affordable for people. We're looking at around like the $100 mark, something where you can learn in a small compacted amount that you can do on your own with pre-recorded videos, and then also have sessions where you can join in and ask questions. So it's a little bit more of that like self-study, but easy, but not entirely too difficult to follow, and you get a lot of background.
Now, are you specifically focused on a particular area or some of the fundamentals in these courses? And how much do you relate to culture?
So the beginning part of the courses that I'm releasing or looking to release this year, I should say, are really going to focus on the fundamentals of wine. So we're looking at, I'm pulling a lot from what I've learned in wine, like classic grapes to know where they're grown, what they taste like, winemaking styles, all that stuff like that. And looking at just like generalities of tasting so that I can build on that in future courses. Future courses would look more at countries and then dive into regions that are most notable for people to understand. For example, if we're looking at Italy as a whole, what makes Italy really interesting as a whole, and the culture behind winemaking in Italy, but also looking at like Brunello, Amarone. Sorry, my dog is playing with this toy.
Oh, that's okay. What is your dog's name?
His name is Togo. He's adorable, but he's He's very interested in his toy at the moment.
Okay, go. Down, boy.
Yeah, so Brunello, Amarone, Franciacorta, Etna, looking at these larger areas that people can find at wine stores, see on labels, buy them and understand them more, and really start at those kind of base levels, because some people really don't want to know more than that. And if they want to find out more, there's tons of courses for them out there, but it's that gap in the marketplace that I'm really focusing on.
Yes, and certainly I think with what's happening in terms of the importance of what people are considering, they talk about sustainability, they're talking about, is it dynamic, biodynamic, is it organic? And with your environmental background, I'm sure you'll be touching on that. Now, in all your studies, there've been many challenges that you've come across, and it's quite remarkable, out of all of the challenges that you've had, because you've touched the different spectrums, what's been your largest and most stubborn challenge that you have overcome in getting to your career?
I think there's one concept that always stayed with me. I can't remember where I've read it from, but I think that there is a lot of creativity in small spaces. So if you're constantly being told that you can't do something, you're usually going to find a workaround if you really want to get it done. Be that in importing or in just like not getting the role that you want at your job, or in any aspect of life. I think that a lot of people might think that the fact that I'm an LGBTQ woman might have been the largest thing to get over, but in all honesty, it's my learning disabilities that have been the most difficult thing for me in my overall life to accomplish my career goals. I have ADHD and dyslexia. And because these are very hidden disabilities, they're not something that the issue with ableism that I find that people don't talk about a lot is the fact that there are a lot of people out there that are dealing with different levels of ability for different aspects of their life. And if you look like you don't have any differentiation in your level of ability, then you're really kind of being treated in a different way. Even going back as far as into schooling and just trying to do any aspect of my career, I found working for myself to be the best version of dealing with it, because I didn't have to be upholded to anybody's version of what looked like a substantial level of work for somebody who has to be working in a different perspective.
Thank you for sharing that, and I think it's very inspirational, because as you said, you don't openly see some of those issues. And did you find that there was support within the industry, or was it specifically certain people that took you by the hand and said, we will overcome this? I asked that because, I've lectured to deaf people before. And it was a very interesting time of my teaching period, where I would actually speak, and then I would have to face the lecture, face the students. It's not the traditional way you could turn around and write on the board. And for you, when you, I don't know, I'm sure you may have come across people with similar issues that you've had. How do you sort of find out that they do have those, and how do you deal with it for them in a very positive way?
Well, I'm a child of the 90s, so I think that a lot of people in my age group kind of treat these issues that they have, or these aspects of their life more so in probably a similar way. Like we all have memories of how we were treated when we were younger. So I think a lot of people actually, and including myself, kind of kept it under wraps as long as I could, because I felt like if someone felt like I couldn't spell or write, sometimes I write emails like I speak like English is my second language when it is my first language. So I think that I come off a lot differently. Usually my workaround for it, and the communities that I've found. So the communities that I found are really around the LGBTQ community and women in wine. I haven't really found a lot of communities that are looking at different learning disabled people within wine, or different. I have talked to a lot of people that are song moms that are working in wheelchairs and wonderful people online that are finding workarounds for that. And there's some amazing sommeliers that are out there. But I think that the ableist side of the wine industry is still really kind of moving its way forward, and those communities are still being built into these grander things. So for me, I always just used what I was good at. I'm better at talking than writing. I know that I can kind of smile and shake somebody's hand and they'll most likely be willing to chat with me a little bit longer. When I was in school and I was younger, I had to take kind of classes to get better at my social skills. And they were always telling me, if you ask a question that doesn't have a yes or no answer, you'll most likely end up in a conversation with somebody. So that's what I always used to still do to this day. But there's lots of communities for women in wine that I've been a part of. I've worked with Femme du Vin before and continue to work with them as well. My mentor, Emily Pierce, has been a wonderful champion for women in wine here in Canada. I've worked with many great women in the wine industry across the world whenever I get the chance to. And when we are looking at LGBTQ people in wine, I have always reached out to and made time for anybody that wants my help in any aspect of their career, and made sure that I'm being part of projects that I think are putting people in the right light. At the bare minimum, for me, everyone is very humanistic, and all these things that are going on in our lives, whenever you're part of a community of difference, you're still a human being and you want to be treated like you're not part of a community of difference. So we're always trying to work on, at least I'm always trying to work on projects that showcase that more and more, and being conscious of creating projects that include more people that might feel like they're in a different community, but do deserve every single aspect of being part of the larger conversation.
I mean, that's spectacular, and it's extraordinary what you have achieved, Renee. I mean, the vast experiences that you have, you're sort of using them and you're building a foundation that is going to be enviable. And I see truly a positive and brighter future for the years ahead for you. Now, you're welcome. It resonates and it exudes itself, you know, during this interview. And you know, we are both in the world of wine, and although it's romantic, compelling, fascinating, but it is generally acknowledged it's not an easy one.
No.
What advice would you offer aspiring students of wine?
I think that any academic career, wine is an academic career. I would drop it and stop thinking about it as everyone's using this as an excuse to get wasted and hang out. Like, that's definitely not what's happening. There are moments where that happens, and thank goodness I get to work in an industry where we can drink and talk about it. That's fun. That's awesome to me. But I think that I would drop that idea completely. Think of it more as an academic career. I often use the terminology academic drinking. Now, when you're looking at that overall, what does that mean? What does an academic career look like? We have a lot of knowledge base that goes into wine. Understanding wine it's really like working in the computer industry. Things are updating constantly. There's wine being made in China, Armenia. We have Lebanese-based wines now. There are sub-regions that are coming out in these areas, and you have to know them. Tests are getting harder and harder. More information is out there to learn. So like, expand your horizons. The other thing that I tell people is constantly be reading, constantly be tasting. And I've even had people call me for business advice. Somebody called me today. So if you want to start a business in it, think about your end goal and what you want to create. And that's like, you're working towards that goal. You've created what you want. I'm still working towards my goal. It's not here yet. And build backwards and make your 5-year, your 3-year, your 1-year, your 10-year plan about what that looks like. You can have a dream and an idea, but not all of that idea might be accomplishable within a short period of time. And nor should you put that pressure on yourself, because what you're going to produce is not as good as what you can when you take your time with some aspects of it. Yes,
very, very sage wisdom and advice that you shared there. And I see there's that alignment with us at APWASI as well, Renee, because you know, we know that there are a vast number of wineries, distilleries, and individuals who are wanting to put their stamp and contribute to this glowing and continuous tapestry of life, because life and wine and history are closely interlinked. And what you've just said echoes that, very clearly.
The other thing I will say, though, just to tack on, is I think more so in the wine industry than a lot of other industries across the planet, because it is such a small industry by comparison to so many others, making sure that you're talking to the right people and asking for the right advice from people that can help move you forward is the best thing that you can do in a career, in a business that is quite tight-knit and small. Like, I've talked to people and I mentioned someone that I know, and they're like, oh, I've worked with them, and they live on 2 separate sides of the planet. So this is a very good industry to suss out who you want to work with very well.
And technology-wise, it has not been an impediment. In fact, it has ignited a growth spurt in wine internationals and professionals being able to reach out, connect with one another, share stories, and literally expand the base level of knowledge. So truly, I think what you shared with us is quite poignant and to the point. You mentioned earlier on that you work with some organizations, and one of them was Femme de Vin, a nonprofit, and the Canadian Association of Professional Sommeliers. Could you share with us a little bit more about your role with the Femme de Vin and why you became a part of it?
So Femme de Vin was actually started by my mentor, Emily Pierce, and it actually started as a backyard party, as we were calling it the best little secret for women in wine for the longest time. And 4 years after those backyard parties were going on, Femme de Vin kind of broke out and started doing a lot more like convention-sized things that people can physically go to that we buy tickets for, and there would be a lot more available. And all these other guys in the wine industry were like, "Oh my God, have you heard of Femme de Vin?" It's like, yeah, you're late by 4 years, but cool. So it was really a very grassroots thing. And then as of 2 years ago in 2020, with the pandemic, everything coming online virtually, we saw a lot more of a bigger push in Femme de Vin. And Emily Pierce had asked me to join the board. I was the communications director for them, looking at how to best bring, like, in a marketing aspect, but also at the same time, how to best say the message of Femme de Vin while putting forward the work that we were trying to do. Overall, we were looking at how to benefit women in wine across the board, and what mentorships they could have, what scholarships are available. We did a scholarship funding round as well for people. And my job was really looking at how to communicate that.
And you're currently still with them, and you still have programs running. How is the organization now?
My tenure actually just ended this year, so it's a 2-year board position, and then it transfers over. This is, like I'm on the board for CAPS, which is the Canadian Association of Professional Sommeliers. So based on the terms, you usually kind of roll over once the term is done. And it's a great opportunity for somebody else to take the spot that I had beforehand, but I was really happy to be a part of it for that time. Femme de Vin usually kind of takes a break at about this time, as they're creating more content and virtual seminars, and just working with different aspects of the wine industry, preparing for their upcoming seminars and virtual content for this year.
Right. So, you literally are the descendants of the great people and winemakers of Italy. That is a lovely heritage that you have. And for those of you that haven't visited Italy, you truly haven't lived. And I say that with a deep conviction, having traversed the entire breadth of Italy, the diversity of, going from Barolo to Amarone to Chianti, Brunello, Sicilia, and one of my personal favorites from Umbria, Sagrantino.
Yeah, Sagrantino, love Sagrantino, the sacrament wine.
Exactly. So, for that one, to me, Italy abounds. It's literally bursting with culture. And you, with your background and what you've achieved, how important is culture to you when learning about wine, in your opinion?
I think culture is, and maybe this is because I'm Italian, but I think culture is really paramount in understanding wine. So if we take that Italy example and we push it just a little bit farther and pull it out, Italy is the summation of city-states. There are a lot of wines across Italy that many people not from there will argue that taste quite similar. And I can agree with them mildly, but they're not. They're very different. Each one is very different. So why do people in Italy feel that way about the wines that they are drinking and the wines that they are creating when you have, like, honestly, to someone who's probably never tasted many Italian wines before, if they're tasting a Barolo, a Brunello, and an Etna Rosso next to each other, they have a lot of similarities in them that can be a little bit difficult to detect, other than like, wow, these tannins are insane, and this acidity is way higher, and we have more cherries here. So depending on where we're looking at and what we're expressing in the glass. So culture is really what dictates what those summations of city states are really trying to express in the glass, and why those wines mean a lot to them, and how they pair with the specific foods that are in the area. France is another great version of that. You have a lot of different things going on in France. And then you see that in the New World as well, when you look at the terroir that's coming through, and also how people are treating the way that they're pairing their local foods with wines. In Canada, you also see that as well, this multiple expression of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, but also how we can get different cool climate varietals to give variations of expressions here, and looking at culture through the lens of immigration based in these New World areas, where you have this kind of twisting and turning of these grapes that might never be there, but also have this really long heritage culture that find themselves in the New World.
Certainly. And I mean, that the climate of those different countries, the food, I mean, for example, there's more of a sort of in northeast of Italy, more of a Germanic influence, you know, when you go up, I think Lago di Garda, you know, you have, I think Lago di Riva, you know, up in the north, most people speak German there. And then more of a, you know, French influence up in, you know, the northwest of Italy, you know, through the Barolo, and having the sort of style of food that they have, you know, which is more like game, and hence the wine itself. So you're absolutely right in there that it is very important. And certainly for APWASI ourselves, all the areas that we love to touch on are the people, because the wine and the spirits, they express themselves through the people.
Wine is the most humanistic thing we've ever created. It's just an expression of us that we like to drink.
Okay. Now, I know that one of your particular favorites, Renee, is Soave.
I do like Soave, yes.
I know you like Soave. Okay. So I'm going to ask you, we know one of your favorite wines would be Soave. So what would be your second favorite wine? And what is the ideal pairing for you with that?
It's so hard to pick. Like, I have like my top 5 that I love. I love
Well, share
Soave.
the top 5. Share the top 5.
Soave, Etna Rossos, specifically full Narello Muscalesi is probably
Narello
my favorite.
Muscalesi, yes.
Yeah, I also love Chablis and Champagne, very, very, very much so. And I am truly a sucker for really, really lovely Chenin Blanc from South Africa. Those are some of the main ones that I really do tend to focus on. I review a lot of wine, but everyone always asks me like, oh, you always review things that you like. I'm like, that's not true, because if I was only reviewing things that I like, then I would only be drinking like 5 wines at a time, and everything else can kind of come later. But those would be what I would be drinking. One of my favorite pairings by far to do is have an Etna Rosso, and I liked making pizza dough from scratch. So I make pizza dough from scratch and the sauce from scratch, and we do these really fun rustic pizza nights. I do a little bit of a Canadian twist where I do olive oil soaked kale that I put on top, and it makes it really crispy in the oven, but I still love it with Etna Rosso. I think it gives it a lot more of a differentiation with that earthiness once you add the kale.
Well, you know, you mentioned Narello Muscalesi. Not many people have had the opportunity to enjoy that. And it is, you know, one that I have enjoyed several times. So I think we're bonded together, Renee, with that one.
Yes, it's a wonderful wine to bond with because it's so damn good.
It is. It is. It's stunning. It sort of captivates you and holds you. So
Mhm.
I like that choice. Now, let me ask you this, Renee. What advice would you give to now that you now know to a 21-year-old Renee Sferrazzi?
Um, uh, I probably not to get jealous of other people doing well. And that's it. Like control FOMO. I think everybody in their 20s has this I want to get this done right now kind of a thing. And we all make mistakes as we're moving forward with our lives because we were probably working on something too fast or worrying that we were going to be left behind. I was obsessed with getting like a top 30 under 30 thing, top 20 under 20 or top 30 under 30.
Right,
And
right.
I missed both of those because I'm in my 30s. So we'll
Uh-huh.
see what happens. But I was obsessed with that. And I think that my need to want to create something interesting without actually thinking about the substance of what is interesting and what is useful is a big pitfall that I think a lot of people in their early stages of their career, especially entrepreneurs, can find themselves in. You usually fail a couple of different times before you get to what you're supposed to do. I'm on my third business as well. So you just have to keep working at it and keep going.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Renee. Now, I know you may have shattered your crystal ball just recently, but I know that you are a firm and ardent supporter of 1, 3, and 5-year plans, as you had mentioned earlier on.
Mhm.
So, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
In 5 years' time, it is my hope that I continue to be more prevalent on more platforms, being able to put more out for people in terms of classes and podcasts and video content as well. It'd also be great to be looking at more on TV work as well. Hopefully I'll get a show. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. I'm already on TV, so we'll see what goes from there. And then outside of that, to start working on more concrete writing.
Well, that certainly is a list of very, very sought after objectives that I think many people would subscribe to.
Thank you.
And you know, the sort of penultimate question I'd like to ask you, Renee, to our viewers out there, given what we're going through and, you know, the lockdowns and it's very trying on people, what advice would you give to them if they are wanting to say, you know, I want to try a particular type of wine and they're not sure? Is there anything specific? Would you say, buy the wine and make the food, or decide on the meal and then decide on the wine after? Which one would you go for?
Usually, honestly, for people that want to try something new, I do this kind of case study with people that I meet a lot that always ask me this in person. And my question is, how much do you spend on the wine that you like? Okay, let's define that as $25. Okay, so if you, oh, sorry, 1 second.
That's okay.
So let's define that as $25. Okay, you'll spend $25 on the wine that you know and that you like. Let's knock $5 off of that. Let's make it $20.
Okay.
Why don't you go into the wine store, pick something that just looks interesting that you haven't tried before. And if it's $20 and under, buy it, try it, see if you like it, and then pair it with whatever meal you want. If it didn't work, you might not finish the wine all in that one day. Make a different meal the next day and try it again. And you know what? If you don't like it, that's fine. It's equally as important to know why you don't like something as why you do like something. And articulating that is incredibly important, or else, especially in the world of wine, or else you're never really going to find additional things that you like. If you don't like high tannins and you can't tell me that you don't like high tannins, how am I supposed to know that?
That is so true. You know, Renée Sferrazza, you mentioned that you didn't make that list of 20 under 20 or 30 under 30. I can tell you it's their loss, because it's quite abundantly clear and gleaming and glistening and brilliant that all those experiences, from the environment to Treviso to to working with nonprofits and importer and working with LCBO to literally having your feet, burning, serving people has stood you in great stead. And now you are now well and truly rounded to tackle the world of wine. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a
pleasure.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Please comment, like, share, or subscribe to our videos.